we have warmed, about 1.1 degrees centigrade over since pre-industrial times. On methane, because it's a much more short-lived gas, if you can get it down by 50%, and we say 40% by 2030, if you can do that, you get a big impact onto limiting. There are lots and lots of opportunities to reduce methane emissions, in particular from the fossil fuel sector. We've realised at the Energy Transition Commission that we haven't focused enough on methane, and other people haven't focused enough on methane. If you pick up the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change's latest report on what's happening to the climate, there's a chart in there which I've never really seen it this clearly before, that says, we have warmed, about 1.1 degrees centigrade over since pre-industrial times, about 0.75 degrees, 0.8 degrees has come from CO2 concentrations, but about 0.5 degrees centigrade has come from methane emissions.
And that comes from agriculture.
And then from negative offsets. So if you think about the two big positives, methane and the CO2, and methane, the impact has been almost 40% of that, something like 38%. So you suddenly say, we shouldn't just be talking about CO2, we should be talking about methane. And the other, as it were, good thing about methane is with CO2, because this is a long-lasting gas in the atmosphere, we absolutely have to, get the new flow down. But even once you've got the new flow down, that stock up there is still having its warming effect. And so on the CO2 side, you have to put a long-term sustained effort in to get the limit to climate that you want. On methane, because it's a much more short-lived gas, if you can get it down by 50%, and we say 40% by 2030, if you can do that, you get a big impact onto limiting global warming much earlier than you would by reducing the new flow of CO2 per that. So it's important. So three things. It's very important to the global warming story. It's a lever where if you can reduce it, it has a big short-term impact. And as the International Energy has shown in very detailed work, there are lots and lots of opportunities to reduce methane emissions, in particular from the fossil fuel sector, from the production of coal and gas and oil at relatively low costs. Because when you do this, you save some methane, right? And you can sell the methane. That's why these end up as low-cost ones. So within what we are recommending of what needs to be achieved at COP26, we're saying, let's have a big focus on methane. Let's ensure that people are focusing on that and giving it the importance which it deserves.
But it's going to be more challenging, right? Because methane's biggest source is biomass, agriculture, livestock.
No, let's be clear. There are two things. There's about a third of the methane is from the fossil fuel sector. And that's where you could probably cut it by 60%, we say, by 2030. And this is where the action that has to occur is in professionally managed large-scale oil and gas companies, international. They tend to be regulated industries in any case. You can count the number of them in the world. You can observe by satellite from infrared imaging where this methane's coming up. It's a containable problem. You are quite right that in the getting on for 2/3 of emission, which comes from the agriculture, food and land use area, that is more difficult because this is not hundreds of oil and gas companies. This is hundreds of thousands of farmers throughout the world. What are the practices they're using for manure management, etc. So there, we are saying there's stuff we can do, but we've put in an assumption that you might cut that by 30%, but not by the 60% that one ought to be able to achieve at low cost in the fossil fuel sector.